She was not raised in political circles, and she was never chasing public attention. Yet, at just 28, an artist quietly became New York City's new First Lady. Most people think they know who Rama Duwaji is from a few photos and headlines, but the real story behind her rise is something very few have heard. When New York City welcomed a new mayor in early 2026, the spotlight did not fall on him alone. Standing beside him was Rama Duwaji, a name that until recently lived mostly in art circles, design studios, and cultural spaces far removed from City Hall. Overnight, she became NYC's new First Lady, and with that title came curiosity, fascination, and a flood of assumptions. Some saw her simply as the young wife of a rising political figure. Others noticed her fashion, her confidence, her calm presence in moments of historic change. But beyond the headlines and viral images, Rama Duwaji represents something much deeper. She is not a ceremonial figure. She is not a silent partner. She is a creative force, a cultural bridge, and a symbol of a changing city. Here are 7 things you might not know about Rama Duwaji, New York City's new First Lady. 1. Her identity was shaped by movement, not one place. Rama Duwaji was born in Houston, Texas, to Syrian parents, but her sense of identity was never limited to one city or one country. Her upbringing reflected the experience of many children of immigrants, growing up between cultures, languages, and traditions. That duality shaped how she sees the world and how she expresses herself, giving her an early awareness of contrast, nuance, and belonging. She spent parts of her life moving between the United States and the Middle East, absorbing different visual languages, customs, and social dynamics. These shifts taught her how environments shape people and how identity can be both rooted and fluid at the same time. This experience later became central to her work as an artist. Themes of belonging, displacement, and cultural memory appear again and again in her creative output, not as abstract ideas, but as lived experience. Unlike public figures who adopt global language later in life, Rama grew up living it. That background now informs how she approaches her public role in New York City, a place defined by migration, reinvention, and layered identities. Her presence in Gracie Mansion reflects the lived reality of millions of New Yorkers whose stories do not fit into a single box, but instead exist across borders, histories, and cultures. 2. She built a serious art career long before politics. Long before becoming First Lady, Rama Duwaji had already earned recognition in the international art and illustration world. She studied communication design at Virginia Commonwealth University before earning a Master of Fine Arts in Illustration from the School of Visual Arts in New York. Her training was formal, demanding, and rooted in discipline. Her work has appeared in respected publications such as The New Yorker and The Washington Post. She has collaborated with global brands like Apple and Spotify and exhibited work at institutions including the Tate Modern in London. These are not casual achievements. They reflect years of creative development and professional credibility. Her art often focuses on women, identity, migration, and emotional truth. It avoids spectacle and leans toward intimacy. The figures in her illustrations feel reflective, grounded, and human. This artistic voice is important because it shows that her influence comes from creation, not proximity to power. When she stepped into public life, she did not abandon her identity as an artist. Instead, she carried it with her, signaling that creativity and leadership do not exist in separate worlds. 3. Her relationship with the mayor did not start in political circles. Unlike many political partnerships that begin through professional networks or shared political ambition, Rama Duwaji met Zohran Mamdani through a dating app. Their relationship started quietly, without cameras or public narratives. They connected as individuals before becoming a public couple, talking about life, culture, creativity, and the kind of future they wanted rather than public careers or political timelines. This origin matters because it shaped the foundation of their partnership. Their bond grew around shared values, creativity, and conversations about justice rather than campaign strategy or ambition. They dated privately, engaged outside the public eye, and married in early 2025 through a combination of religious and civil ceremonies across different countries, reflecting both their cultural backgrounds and their desire to keep personal moments meaningful rather than performative. By the time Mamdani launched his successful mayoral campaign, their relationship was already grounded and tested by real life, not shaped by public pressure. Rama was not introduced as a campaign accessory or a carefully timed reveal. She was already a partner, supporter, and trusted voice behind the scenes. That authenticity became noticeable to voters, even if it was not loudly advertised or packaged for attention. Their story reflects a modern political partnership built on equality, mutual respect, and shared vision, rather than image management or traditional expectations. 4. She is NYC's first Gen Z and first Muslim First Lady. At just 28 years old, Rama Duwaji became the youngest First Lady in New York City's history. Her age alone represents a generational shift in political leadership and public presence. It reflects a city that is increasingly shaped by younger voices, newer perspectives, and a different relationship with power and visibility. She represents a generation that grew up online, globally connected, and more aware of identity and representation than any before it. That generational context influences how she carries herself in public spaces, with calm confidence rather than formality. Her significance goes even further. She is also the first Muslim First Lady the city has ever had. In a city shaped by religious diversity, this milestone carries both symbolic and practical meaning. It signals that representation at the highest levels of civic life is expanding beyond tradition and into lived reality. For communities that have long existed on the margins of political imagery, her presence alone challenges outdated assumptions about who belongs at the center of power. Rama does not present her faith as a performance or a statement designed for attention. She does not use it as a political tool or talking point. Instead, she exists naturally and confidently, allowing her identity to be visible without explanation or defense. That quiet confidence is what makes her role so impactful. It removes the sense of exception and replaces it with normalcy, something that representation is meant to achieve. For young Muslim women watching from across the city and around the world, her role sends a powerful and deeply personal message. You do not need to dilute your identity to belong in public life. You do not need to soften your background to be accepted. You do not need to wait for permission to take up space. Rama Duwaji stands as proof that faith, modernity, creativity, and leadership can coexist without compromise. 5. She uses fashion as cultural storytelling. When Rama Duwaji appeared at inauguration events, fashion media took immediate notice, but her clothing choices were not about trends or spectacle. They were deliberate and deeply personal. She chose designers connected to the Middle East and independent creative communities. Her outfits reflected restraint, intention, and cultural awareness rather than luxury for its own sake. In doing so, she turned fashion into a form of communication. Each public appearance told a story about heritage, values, and support for creative labor. In a political environment where clothing often signals conformity, her style stood out as thoughtful and expressive. Rather than blending into a traditional political image, Rama's fashion choices reinforced her identity as an artist and cultural participant. She showed that visual language matters and that it can carry meaning without explanation. 6. She helped shape the campaign behind the scenes. While Rama avoided the spotlight during the mayoral campaign, her influence was present in quieter ways. The campaign's visual identity stood out from typical political branding. It felt modern, community-focused, and emotionally grounded. The colors, layouts, and imagery avoided the stiff look voters have grown used to and instead reflected real neighborhoods, real people, and real energy. This was no accident. As an artist and designer, Rama brought a visual sensibility that helped shape how the campaign communicated with voters. Posters, graphics, and digital content reflected authenticity rather than polish, favoring clarity and emotion over political gloss. The designs felt lived in, not manufactured. That approach resonated strongly with younger voters and creatives who often feel alienated by traditional politics. The campaign looked like it belonged to the city it represented, not a consulting firm. Her role was not about control or credit, it was about contribution. She understood how imagery builds trust, how visuals create memory, and how storytelling can make policy feel human. That understanding made her an asset long before the election results were announced. 7. She is learning to balance privacy with public expectation. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of Rama Duwaji's new role is navigating visibility. Before becoming First Lady, she lived a relatively private life focused on art and personal relationships. Now, every appearance is analyzed, shared, and interpreted, often within minutes of happening. Small details that once went unnoticed are now treated as signals or statements, whether she intends them to be or not. Despite this, she has been intentional about how much access she allows. She does not overshare. She chooses moments carefully and avoids turning her personal life into public content. When she speaks, it is measured and thoughtful, suggesting reflection rather than reaction. In interviews, she has acknowledged that this transition is both exciting and daunting. She understands the responsibility of representation, but remains protective of her inner life and creative space. That balance is rare in a media environment that rewards constant exposure and endless commentary. Her approach suggests that influence does not require constant noise. Presence, when used intentionally, can be more powerful than saturation and more lasting than visibility alone. Conclusion. Rama Duwaji's emergence as New York City's First Lady marks a turning point in how the role is understood. She is not a ceremonial figure defined by tradition or expectation. She is an artist, a cultural participant, and a representative of a generation that values authenticity over performance. Her presence challenges the long-standing idea that influence must look formal, distant, or rehearsed. Instead, she represents a quieter form of power rooted in self-awareness and purpose. Her story reflects the city she now represents: diverse, creative, unapologetically layered. New York has always been shaped by people who arrived carrying multiple identities and blended them into something new. Rama embodies that reality. Her background, her work, and her worldview mirror the lives of millions of New Yorkers who move between cultures, languages, and worlds every day. She brings into public life a perspective shaped by migration, art, faith, and modern partnership, offering a lens that feels current rather than inherited. What makes her role especially significant is that she does not attempt to fit into a predefined mold. She has not reinvented herself to appear more traditional or more political. She has remained grounded in who she already was. That consistency builds trust in a time when public figures are often criticized for appearing manufactured or disconnected. Her influence comes not from speeches or titles, but from presence, restraint, and intention. As New York moves forward under new leadership, Rama Duwaji's presence signals that power no longer looks the same as it once did. It can be young, it can be creative, it can be thoughtful without being loud, it can engage without dominating. In a city where every voice competes for attention, her approach offers an alternative model of leadership influence that values depth over volume. She also represents a broader shift in how political families are viewed. No longer confined to background roles, partners can now be contributors, collaborators, and cultural translators. Rama's influence shows how creativity and politics can intersect without losing integrity on either side. She demonstrates that supporting leadership does not mean surrendering personal identity. For younger generations watching closely, her rise offers something rare: proof that you can enter public life without abandoning your values, proof that art and politics are not opposites, proof that representation does not require perfection, only honesty. Her journey suggests that the future of leadership may be shaped as much by culture and creativity as by policy and power. And that may be the most important thing to know about New York City's new First Lady. Not just who she is, but what she represents.